there are 400 people in that theater and a $5,000 check somewhere backstage, and I am standing in the middle of a lit stage with a borrowed guitar, and I have not sung a note in front of another human being in 11 years. My hands don't work. That's the first thing. My fingers are on the strings, and they have simply forgotten what they are for. The lights are so bright I can't see the audience, which everyone told me would be a mercy, and is not, because now they're just a wall of breathing dark, 400 strangers waiting for a man they've never heard of to justify walking out here. And I think about my daughter, because that's the only reason I'm standing here at all. I want to tell you how I even got up there, because the version where a brave man strides onto a stage is not what happened. What happened is that a young woman with a clipboard called a name that wasn't quite mine, the name I'd written on the form with a hand that wouldn't stay still, and my legs took me out from the wings before my mind had agreed to any of it, and the light hit me like a physical thing. A wall of white heat, and the polite scattered applause for a nobody died down into a waiting quiet, and there I was. A man in his one good shirt, which was not very good, holding a guitar that belonged to his neighbor, in front of more people than had ever looked at him at once in his life. My mouth was desert dry. I could hear my own heartbeat in my ears, louder than the room. Every instinct I had was screaming at me to apologize to all these people and walk back off. And then, under all of that noise in my head, one clear thought, the only one that mattered: Wren. This is for Wren. And I stayed. Her name is Wren. She's 7. And she is, right now, 40 minutes away in a hospital bed, and she is very, very sick. And the thing that would give her the best chance is a thing I cannot afford, and I have run out of every ordinary way a man is supposed to solve a problem like that. I have sold what there was to sell. I have asked everyone there was to ask, and then I saw the flyer for this, a regional talent competition, one night, one winner, $5,000, and I did the math, which is a terrible math, the math of a father with nothing left, and $5,000 is not enough to fix anything, but it is enough to be the difference between two kinds of maybe, and so here I am. Wren doesn't know I'm here. I told her I had a work thing. She's 7, she believed me. She said, "Bring me back a treat," the way she does, and I said I would, and I kissed her forehead, which was too warm, and I drove here with my hand shaking on the wheel. I keep coming back to that, the too warm forehead, because it's such a small ordinary thing that a parent knows in their lips before they know it in their mind. You kiss your kid goodnight 10,000 times, and your mouth learns exactly how they're supposed to feel, and when it's wrong, when there's that faint furnace under the skin, something older than thought sits up in you and starts to be afraid. I have kissed that forehead every night of her life. I know it better than I know my own face in a mirror. And for months now, it has not been right, and every night I press my lips to it, and I do the math no parent should have to do, and then I go out into the hallway where she can't see me, and I put my back against the wall, and I breathe until I can go back in smiling. That's the man who drove to the talent show. Not a brave one. A terrified one, running out of hallway to breathe in. So when my fingers forget what they're for, up on that stage, I don't run. I close my eyes and I picture her face and I think, it's for Wren. And my hands remember. I need to back up because you can't understand what happened next. What happened when I opened my mouth, without knowing one thing about me that even I had mostly buried. I used to sing. When I was a boy, I sang all the time, everywhere, and I was good, and the reason I was good is that my father taught me. I'm not going to pretend that's an easy sentence to write. My father and I have not spoken in over 20 years. I'm not going to lay the whole thing out like a court case, partly because I'm not sure I understand it well enough even now, and partly because there's no villain in it, which is the hardest kind of broken thing to explain. My parents split when I was 13. It was ugly, the way those things are, and I went with my mother, and there was a lot of anger flying around over my head that I only half understood, and somewhere in it I decided, a 13-year-old's decision, absolute and stupid and total, that my father had chosen to let me go, that he hadn't fought. I took my mother's name. I stopped answering. And by the time I was old enough to wonder whether the story I'd built at 13 was the true one, too many years had gone by, and the wall was too high, and I was a proud man, and he was a proud man, and neither of us ever picked up the phone. That's it. That's the whole tragedy, not cruelty. Just two proud people and a misunderstanding that hardened into a decade and then two. The one thing he gave me that I never gave back was the music. He was a musician, a real one, locally, a man who played and sang and was known for it in the small world we lived in. And before everything came apart, when I was small, he used to sing me one particular song. It wasn't famous. I've never heard another soul sing it. I think it might have been his own, or his father's, a slow, plain, aching thing about a river and a boy and going home. He sang it to me every night for the first 10 years of my life. It was the last thing I heard before sleep more nights than not. I can still see him doing it. He'd sit on the edge of my bed, this big man, and the mattress would tilt toward him, and he'd have his old guitar, the one with the worn place on the body where his arm rested, and he wouldn't perform it, wouldn't do any of the things he did on a stage. He'd just sing it low, half to himself, like he was remembering it more than singing it. Sometimes he'd forget I was there and keep going after I'd closed my eyes, and I'd lie in the dark pretending to sleep just to keep hearing it. He smelled like sawdust and coffee. His voice had a crack in the low notes. When I was very small, I thought that song was a real place, an actual river you could drive to, and I thought that someday he'd take me there. I never told anyone that. I've never told anyone that until right now. I stopped singing it when the family broke. I stopped singing anything. For 11 years I have not sung in front of a living person because singing was his, and I had cut out everything that was his, and the song most of all. The song was a wound I kept closed. People don't understand that you can amputate a part of yourself out of spite and then spend the rest of your life with the phantom of it aching. Singing was the best thing in me. I knew that at 13, which is exactly why I killed it, because it was his, because it was the clearest fingerprint he'd left on me, and a furious hurt boy wants nothing so much as to erase the person who hurt him, even if the only way to do it is to erase part of himself. So I stopped. I turned down the choir teacher who begged me. I went quiet at every campfire, every wedding, every car ride where everyone else sang along. I built a whole personality around being a man who doesn't sing, and I told myself it was just who I was, and I almost believed it for 11 years. But it was never who I was. It was a door I'd nailed shut with my own hands because my father was on the other side of it, and I would rather have lived in a smaller house forever than open it. But here's the thing. Standing on that stage, terrified, out of options, with my little girl sick in a bed 40 minutes away, and 400 strangers waiting in the dark, I reached for the only song that lives in me deep enough that fear can't take it. The only song my hands and my throat know so completely that they can do it without me. The only song I could be sure I would not forget in front of 400 people. It was his. Of course it was his. It was the only one that was ever really mine. I didn't think about the judges. I want to be clear about that, because of what you already know from the title of this and what I did not know standing up there. There were 3 judges at a long table below the stage, in the shadow just past the lights, and I had barely looked at them. They were just part of the machinery to me, the people who'd hold up a number and decide whether my daughter got a chance. I never looked at their faces. It makes a terrible kind of sense now that he'd be there. He'd spent his whole life in the music of that region. Of course they'd ask a man like him to judge a local showcase, an elder of that small world. A name people still knew. If I'd ever once looked at the roster, if I'd read the names of the judges on that photocopied flyer instead of only the words $5,000, I might have seen his. I might have known. I might have run, honestly. I might have been too much of a coward to walk out there if I'd known he was in the room. But I never looked past the prize, because a drowning man reads only the word that might be a rope, and so I walked onto that stage blind, which is the only reason any of it happened. If I'd known, I'd have fled. Because I didn't know, I sang. Sometimes the whole course of your life turns on a thing you were too desperate to notice. I couldn't have. The lights were in my eyes. I want you to hold on to that because it matters. I did not know. When I opened my mouth to sing my father's song, I had no